You're falling asleep as the person who's still waiting, still hoping, still broke. But what if you could fall asleep as the version of you who already has it? This is SATS, state akin to sleep, and it's the fastest way to impress your subconscious with the wish fulfilled. Tonight, you're going to try it. Every single night, you lie down in your bed and you fall asleep. This is not optional. This is not something you do when you feel like it. Every night, without fail, you pass from waking consciousness into sleep. And in that passage, in that drowsy threshold between awake and asleep, there exists the most powerful creative moment available to a human being. Yet most people waste it. They fall asleep rehearsing their problems. They fall asleep in the feeling of lack. They fall asleep as the person who does not have what they desire, and then they wonder why their life never changes. They wonder why tomorrow looks exactly like yesterday, why next month mirrors last month, why the same struggles return year after year. Listen to me carefully. The person you are when you fall asleep is the person you will wake up as tomorrow. Not the person you hope to become. Not the person you wish you were. The person you are in feeling at the moment you surrender to sleep. That state, that feeling, that assumption of identity in the last conscious moment before sleep claims you. That is what hardens into your tomorrow. This is the law. This is not poetry. This is not motivational language. This is how consciousness operates. And tonight, I am going to show you how to use this threshold deliberately. I am going to show you the technique that Neville Goddard himself called the most effective method he ever taught. SATS. State akin to sleep. The art of falling asleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The law is this: consciousness is the only reality. Your awareness, your sense of being, your inner conviction of who you are and what is true, this is the substance from which your entire world is spun. Not sometimes, not under ideal conditions, always. What you are conscious of being, you become. What you assume to be true about yourself and your world, the world must confirm. It has no choice. It is a mirror. It reflects. It does not initiate. And the subconscious mind, that vast, deep engine beneath your waking thoughts, accepts as true whatever you impress upon it in the state akin to sleep. Not what you think about during the day while your critical mind is active and alert. Not what you wish for or hope for while you are fully awake and guarded. What you feel to be true, what you accept as already done in that drowsy state just before sleep, when your conscious mind loosens its grip and the subconscious rises to the surface like deep water meeting moonlight. In that state, you are most impressionable, most moldable, most open. The gatekeeper is drowsy. The critic is fading. And whatever you plant in that soil, whatever scene you loop in that moment, whatever feeling you sink into as you drift off, the subconscious accepts without argument. It says yes. It says of course. It says this is what is true. And then it goes to work externalizing it. It begins to harden that assumption into fact. This is not about repeating affirmations until you are exhausted. This is not about trying to believe something while your whole body screams the opposite. This is about using the natural doorway you pass through every single night. The doorway is already there. You are already walking through it. The question is, what are you carrying with you as you cross that threshold? Now let me tell you why most people fail at this, even when they learn about it. Even when they hear the teaching and nod their heads and say, yes, I understand. Because understanding is not the same as doing. And doing once or twice when you feel inspired is not the same as disciplined nightly practice. Most people lie down at night and they do one of two things. Either they fall asleep passively, letting the day's worries and frustrations replay in their mind until sleep simply overtakes them, Or they try the technique once, maybe twice, and when they do not see immediate results, they abandon it. They say, I tried SATS, it didn't work for me. But what they mean is, I imagined my desire for 3 minutes on a Tuesday night, and when I woke up Wednesday morning and my life looked the same, I decided the law was false. My friends, this is not how it works. Consciousness does not respond to casual experiments. It responds to sustained assumption. It responds to the state you return to again and again until it becomes natural, until it becomes you. There is another mistake I see constantly. People lie down and they try to visualize their desire, but they do it from a place of lack. They imagine the scene, yes, but they imagine it as something outside themselves. Something they are reaching for, something they hope will come. They imagine it the way a starving person imagines food. The very act of imagining is drenched in the feeling of not having. And so what do they impress on the subconscious? Not the wish fulfilled, the wish unfulfilled, the wanting, the waiting, the hoping. And then, of course, that is what shows up in their world. More wanting, more waiting, more hoping. The law does not care what you visualize. It cares what you feel. It cares about the state you occupy. Are you imagining from the wish fulfilled, or are you imagining toward it? Are you standing in the result, or are you standing outside it, looking in? This distinction is everything. Let me tell you about a woman who came to me years ago. She was a writer, or she wanted to be. She had written a manuscript, a novel she had poured her heart into, and she wanted it published. But every agent rejected her. Every door closed. And she was beginning to believe that maybe she was not good enough. Maybe her dream was foolish. She had heard about the law of assumption. She had tried visualizing her book on a shelf, imagining herself holding the published copy, even rehearsing thank you speeches in her mind. But nothing changed. The rejections kept coming. I asked her one question. When you imagine these things, how do you feel? She paused. Then she said, honestly, I feel desperate. I feel like I am trying to convince myself of something that isn't true. There it is. She was imagining the end, but she was not living in it. She was not falling asleep in the feeling of already being a published author. She was falling asleep in the feeling of someone begging to become one. So I gave her one instruction. Tonight before you sleep, do not imagine the book on the shelf. Do not imagine the acceptance letter. Instead, imagine a simple, quiet scene that would naturally occur after the book is already published. Something small, something easy to feel real. She chose this. She imagined herself sitting in a coffee shop, and a stranger approached her and said, I just finished your book. I loved it. That is all. Just that short exchange. But here is what I told her to do. Do not imagine it as a future event. Imagine it as a memory. Imagine it as something that already happened earlier today. Feel the warm, satisfied glow of someone who has already received that compliment. Let that feeling fill you. And as you fall asleep, let that be the last thing you feel. Not hope, not longing, satisfaction. The wish already fulfilled. She did this every night for 3 months. Not with strain, not with desperate effort. Simply, gently, repeatedly. She would lie down, replay that tiny scene, feel the warmth of it, and drift off in that feeling. And do you know what happened? The outer circumstances began to shift in ways she could not have orchestrated. A friend mentioned her manuscript to someone, that someone knew an editor. The editor requested the full manuscript on a Friday afternoon, almost as an afterthought. 2 weeks later, an offer came. When she told me, she said something I will never forget. She said when the offer came, it felt inevitable. It felt like, of course, this happened. It felt like I was just catching up to something that was already true. That is the mark of successful assumption. When the thing arrives, it does not feel like a miracle. It feels like, of course. It feels like naturally, this is mine. Because by the time it arrives in the outer world, you have already been living in it in consciousness for so long that the outer is simply conforming to what you have already accepted as true within. Now let me go deeper into why this works. Let me give you the mechanism beneath the method. Imagine a star millions of miles away, burning in the night sky. When you look at that star tonight, you are not seeing it as it is now. You are seeing light that left that star years ago, perhaps centuries ago. You are seeing the past, not the present. The star may have already changed, may have already moved, may have already died. But you see the old light. Your circumstances are the same. When you look at your bank account, your relationship status, your health, your career, you are seeing old light. You are seeing the hardened result of old assumptions, old states of consciousness you occupied weeks ago, months ago, perhaps years ago. You are seeing the fruit of seeds you planted in consciousness long before you even knew you were planting anything. And here is what this means. If you change your assumption today, you will not see instant results today. You are still seeing the light from the old assumption. The old star is still burning in your sky. But that does not mean your new assumption is not working. It means the new light has not reached you yet. It is traveling. It is on its way. Most people change their inner state for 3 days, look at their unchanged outer world, and conclude the law is false. But they are looking at old light. They are seeing the fruit of the old assumption. And because they do not see instant change, they panic. They return to the old state. They fall asleep again in lack, in fear, in doubt. And so the old assumption keeps creating, keeps projecting, keeps hardening into fact. But if you hold the new assumption, if you fall asleep in the new state night after night, ignoring the old light, persisting in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, then eventually, inevitably, the new light reaches you. The outer world catches up. The mirror reflects the new image. Not because you forced it, because you assumed it. And what you assume, the world must confirm. Think of it another way. Imagine you are standing in a room. This room represents your current state of consciousness. The walls are painted with your current assumptions. I am broke. I am alone. I am unworthy. I am stuck. These assumptions are the paint on the walls, and the light in the room reflects them back to you everywhere you look. Now imagine there is another room down the hall. In that room, the walls are painted differently. I am abundant. I am loved. I am worthy. I am free. That room exists right now, not in the future. Now. It is a state of consciousness available to you in this very moment. The question is not whether that room exists. The question is, which room are you living in? Which room do you return to every night when you fall asleep? Most people spend their waking hours trying to change the paint in the room they are standing in. They try affirmations, vision boards, action plans. They try to force the walls to change color while they remain in the same room, the same state. And it exhausts them. Because you cannot change the room from inside the room. You have to leave the room. You have to walk down the hall. You have to enter the other room and stay there. And SATS, state. Akin to sleep, this is how you move. This is the bridge. You lie down at night, and instead of falling asleep in the old room, you gently, deliberately, persistently place yourself in the new room. You imagine a scene that could only happen if you were already in that new state. You feel the feeling of already being there, and you fall asleep in that room. The first night it may feel like pretending. The second night still pretending. But by the 30th night, by the 60th night, something shifts. It stops feeling like pretending and starts feeling like remembering. It starts feeling like, of course this is true. Of course this is who I am. And when that shift happens in consciousness, the outer world has no choice but to reorganize itself around the new assumption. Now let me tell you exactly what to do. Let me make this so practical that you can begin tonight in the actual texture of your actual life. First, identify your desire. Be specific, but be natural. Do not choose something so grand that you cannot feel it as real. Choose something that stirs you, yes, but something your imagination can accept. If you want financial abundance, do not imagine $1 billion dropping from the sky. Imagine a scene that implies financial ease. Imagine paying a bill without checking your balance. Imagine a friend saying you always seem so at peace about money. Something simple. Something that would naturally occur if the desire were already fulfilled. Second, reduce that desire to a single short scene. This is critical. Do not create a 10-minute movie in your mind. Create a 3 to 5 second loop. A single image, a single moment, a single exchange that implies the wish fulfilled. The shorter, the better. The simpler, the better. Why? Because you are going to repeat this scene as you fall asleep, and if it is too long, too complicated, your mind will wander. You will lose the feeling. But if it is short and simple, you can loop it gently over and over until you drift off inside it. Let me give you examples. If you want a specific relationship, do not imagine the wedding, the honeymoon, the entire love story. Imagine lying in bed and feeling the warmth of their body next to yours. Imagine their hand in yours. Imagine them whispering good night. That is all. 3 seconds. Loop it. Loop. If you want a career change, do not imagine the interview, the offer letter, the first day. Imagine yourself at your new desk feeling the satisfaction of work you love. Imagine a colleague saying, "I am so glad you are here." Imagine the feeling of driving home after a fulfilling day. Pick one. Loop it. If you want health, do not imagine the doctor's report, the test results, the diagnosis reversed. Imagine yourself moving freely, easily, without pain. Imagine looking in the mirror and feeling strong. Imagine someone saying you look amazing. One moment. Loop it. Third, and this is the heart of the practice, do this at night as you are falling asleep. Not in the morning, not during the day. At night in bed in the dark as you are drifting off. Why this time? Because in this state, the conscious mind is loosening its grip. The critical faculty is fading. The border between conscious and subconscious is thin. And whatever you impress on the subconscious in this state, it accepts as true. It does not argue. It does not question. It simply receives. So here is the practice. Lie down in your bed. Close your eyes. Take a few slow breaths to relax your body. Do not try to force anything. Just let yourself settle. Now bring your scene to mind. See it from the first person. Not watching yourself in the scene like a movie. Being in the scene. Seeing through your own eyes. Feeling with your own body. And here is the key. Do not try to make it feel real by effort. Do not strain. Do not clench your mind around it. Instead, gently assume the feeling that this has already happened. Assume the quiet satisfaction, the naturalness, the, of course, quality of something that is already done. Feel it the way you feel a memory. Remember yesterday, remember this morning, there is a texture to memory. It is settled. It is soft. It is already done. That is the feeling you want. Not the sharp excitement of something you hope will happen. The soft satisfaction of something that already did happen. Loop the scene gently. See it, feel it, see it again, feel it again. Over and over softly until your mind begins to drift and sleep starts to pull you under. And let the last thing you feel, the last thing you are conscious of before you cross into sleep, be the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Do not fight to stay awake. Do not try to hold the scene perfectly until you are completely unconscious. That is too much effort. Simply loop it until you naturally drift off. The subconscious will catch it. The impression will be made. And then, this is important, when you wake up in the morning and the old circumstances are still there, do not panic. Do not think it did not work. Remember the star. You are still seeing old light. The new assumption is working beneath the surface. It is traveling towards you. Your job is simply to persist. So that next night you do it again. Same scene, same feeling. You fall asleep in the wish fulfilled. And the next night. And the next. How long? As long as it takes for the assumption to feel natural. For some people this happens in days. For others, weeks. For others, months. It does not matter. The outer circumstances do not dictate the timeline. The inner naturalization does. You will know the assumption has hardened when you no longer feel the need to do the technique. When the desire stops feeling like a desire and starts feeling like a fact. When you think about it, and there is no charge, no longing, no doubt. Just quiet certainty. That is when you know. And that is when the outer world will shift often, suddenly often, in ways you could not have planned. Now I need to speak to the moment that will test you. Because it is coming. There will be a night, maybe many nights, when you lie down to do this practice and everything in you resists. The day was hard. The evidence against your desire is overwhelming. You are tired. You are discouraged. And the idea of imagining the wish fulfilled feels like lying to yourself. In that moment, you will be tempted to fall asleep in the old state, to rehearse the problem. To sink into the feeling of it is never going to happen. And if you do, you will wake up tomorrow deeper in the old reality. The old assumption will strengthen. The old light will keep burning. But if in that moment, you gently, quietly, without force, without self-recrimination, simply return to the scene, simply loop it once, twice, and drift off in the feeling of it already being done, you will have passed the most important test. You will have chosen the new state over the old, even when the old felt more real. And that choice repeated night after night is what breaks the pattern. That is what shifts the foundation. That is what changes everything. This is not weakness, my friends. This is the hardest, most powerful thing a human being can do. To assume the state of the wish fulfilled when every outer circumstance screams the opposite. To fall asleep in abundance when the bills are piled on the table. To fall asleep in love when the bed is empty. To fall asleep in health when the body aches. This requires a kind of inner strength that most people never develop. But you are developing it. Every night you do this, you are developing it. Do not judge yourself if some nights you forget. Do not judge yourself if some nights you fall asleep in the old state. You are human. You are learning. Simply begin again the next night. There is no failure here. There is only practice. And every single time you return to the wish fulfilled, even for 30 seconds before sleep, you are planting a seed. And seeds grow in the dark. Let me say one more thing about what happens as you persist in this practice. You will begin to notice small shifts during the day, little moments where the new state bleeds through. You will catch yourself responding to a situation from the new assumption instead of the old. You will notice that certain worries have faded, certain fears have lost their grip, You will feel lighter, freer, more at ease even before the outer circumstances have fully changed. This is not coincidence. This is evidence that the assumption is taking root. This is the inner change that always precedes the outer. Do not dismiss these small shifts. They are not small. They are everything. They are the foundation moving beneath the surface. And then one day, and you will not see it coming, the outer will shift. It will shift suddenly, or it will shift so gradually you almost do not notice until you look back and realize everything is different. A door will open. A person will appear. An opportunity will arrive. And it will feel natural. It will feel like, of course. It will feel like the world simply catching up to what you have already been living in consciousness for weeks or months. And when that happens, you will understand. You will understand that you were never waiting for the world to change. You were simply waiting for your assumption to harden. You were never powerless. You were never stuck. You were simply falling asleep in the wrong state. And the moment you changed what you fell asleep in, everything began to change. So tonight, my friends, before you sleep, you are going to try this. You are not going to wait until you feel ready. You are not going to wait until the circumstances improve. You are going to lie down in your bed, and you are going to choose your scene. Something simple. Something that implies the wish fulfilled. And you are going to loop it gently as you drift off, feeling it as already done, feeling the satisfaction of it, the naturalness of it, the of course of it. And tomorrow night, you will do it again. And the next night. And the next. Not because you are trying to force the universe to give you something, because you are claiming in consciousness what is already yours. Because you are falling asleep as the person who already has it. Because you are impressing the subconscious with the truth of who you are and what is yours. The person you fall asleep as tonight is the person you will wake up as tomorrow. So choose carefully. Choose deliberately. Choose the wish fulfilled. Here is what you must remember from everything I have shared with you tonight. First, the state you occupy as you fall asleep is the most powerful creative moment you have. The subconscious accepts without question whatever you impress upon it in that drowsy threshold, and it begins immediately to harden that assumption into your outer world. Second, create a short, simple scene that implies your desire is already fulfilled and loop that scene gently from the first-person perspective as you drift into sleep. Feel it as a memory, as something already done, not as a hope for the future. Third, persist night after night, regardless of what the outer circumstances show you, because you are seeing old assumptions still playing out. And your new assumption is working beneath the surface. Fourth, the moment you stop feeling the need to do the technique when the wish fulfilled becomes natural and assumed rather than longed for. That is when the outer world will reorganize to match. And finally, this practice is not about begging the universe or convincing yourself of something false. It is about falling asleep in the truth of who you already are in consciousness, and letting the world reflect that truth back to you. You were never meant to fall asleep in lack and fear and waiting. You were meant to fall asleep in the wish fulfilled every single night, until that becomes the only state you know. Thank you for listening, my cherished friends. Walk out of here knowing. This is Neville Lectures.